Hey, welcome to the Cam Otis Show. On this episode, back to my favorite intro. Got a good friend of mine on the show, Brandyn Cottingham, former Marine. And I said that right because I've been schooled so many times by my Marine friends. Good grief. And yes, as I said it, the M was capitalized too. Good grief. I tell you what. But I love you, man. I love my Marines. And Brandyn, good to have you on the show, man.
Man, thank you, Otis. It's great to be here. Cam, thank you as well. Yeah, excited to be here and speak with share some time with the two of you.
So, man, you are a broad spectrum dude. We were just talking right before the show, a degree in
Audio engineering.
audio engineering. See, I couldn't even
Yeah.
think of it. You got that. You got finances. Classically trained musician. It's what are you searching or are you just having fun?
I think a little bit of both, actually.
Yeah.
I think the fun is in the search, the journey aspect. And I don't know. I think it's just sometimes you're just living and you make a decision and I like this, I'm gonna try it and go for it and keep it moving. And because I've done a lot of other things, just didn't like them and just dropped them really quick and kept moving, so but the things that have kind of stuck definitely was music. My dad was a performing musician. My uncle was a jazz music teacher. I come on my dad's side, especially. A lot of people were musicians. Great aunts, uncles. All were musicians, and so kind of music. I learned to read music at a really young age, and kind of play rudimentary at a young age. But sixth grade, I really officially got in a band and did that. I was lucky that the program we were in, the school district I grew up in had a very, very strong band program. And actually our band director the band director had our head band director is he's in the band directors Hall of Fame. And he's still out there judging and doing the thing. We've got a big old following of his, so we're all fans of Jack Ferris. He taught us a lot. Actually,
say his name again because I want to make sure we tag him.
Yeah, Jack Ferris. What up, Pearland Band, Pearland High School, Pride of Pearland.
Love it, Pride of Pearland.
Oh. Yeah. So, but then that actually kind of rolled. That's how I actually got in the Marine Corps. What was my impetus? It's another story, but basically, long story short, I ended up auditioning for the Marine Corps and passed the audition my first time out, and came home as a junior and told my parents I was going to the Marine Corps, and got a lot of like, what? Marine, like this never knew, what is this? And there was about a year of courting with the recruiter and coming to my house and talking to the parents, understanding now, especially recruiter, to get him the credit he got for recruiting me was like through the roof. It was like a 2 or 3 times like he get credit for. So he was really making sure he got me in.
So you must have felt like you were a D1 athlete, man, getting recruited like that. He's coming to your house and talking with your parents.
I never thought about it like that, but I guess so in some ways. Yeah, it really was. So I did that. I don't even think I was 16 yet. I was like 15.
Holy crap!
And passed the audition, joined the Marine. Yeah, I turned 18 in September. October 1st, I was on the Yellow Footprints in San Diego. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, did that. That was my military experience was a unique one. It was kind of short for me. Learned a lot, but it was still a really good experience. I mean, it was great. I got to march in the Rose Bowl parade. Got to do perform on aircraft carriers. Play for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Play for the general. It was just pomp and circle, a lot of school stuff. We did graduation every Friday. It was a lot of fun stuff. So I miss it and sometimes, and then sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I'm gone. So, but from there, after my military career though, I kind of bounced around for almost a good 8 years, not really kind of knowing what I was going to do. It was the first time I'd always kind of seen myself as a musician, and that's what I figured I was going to do forever. And when that didn't pan out, I didn't really have an identity, didn't know what to do. I just kind of came home, waited tables, tried to go to school, just wasn't working. I just was in a weird place in my, early mid-20s. And then finally, about 28, I was like, okay, I got to do something better with my life. I had gone through a kind of bad breakup and I just needed something different. And that's when I decided, I was like, okay, I know I can go to college. I've always kind of wanted to. And so I went and got to take, at that time was follow what you love. I love music. So let's go do audio engineering and get in that space. And that was a lot of fun too. We had a great experience, learned to play piano, learn to work the soundboards, and as a musician and also being in part of the band, I'd always been part of the crew. In high school, I did also technical theater stuff. So all that behind the scenes, backstage, setting up sets, running soundboards, lights. So it wasn't anything foreign to me. So I went ahead and did that. And that was kind of really when the digital age was really had really taken off. This is, about 12, 13 years ago. And realized that I was competing against 18-year-olds who were coming in with all kinds of knowledge. They've been looking at this stuff at their mama's house for 12 years. And, that's all they do. I go to school and I do this, and it's like, man, these dudes are running circles around me. I could kill them on the producing aspect, or, I was really good at that, but it's just, I just got to a point, I looked at the opportunity costs and it was like, it's not really there. I love it. So I knew I needed to find another way to support that dream, because it wasn't going to bring a lot of money. And so that's when I started really looking into business. I knew, I was like, okay, I want to run a studio, so I need to have business for that, but I also need to have revenue generation coming in so that way I can support my hobby over here, this passion of mine. And that's what got me on the pursuit of business and got me into finance. So I ended up leaving HCC, Houston Community College here, and where I got my degree in audio engineering, and transferred to Texas Southern University. It's a HBCU here in Houston, and go Tigers. And shout out to TSU. And there, man, I had just an amazing experience. I was able to, it was kind of the first time in my life, it was the first time in my life I could go somewhere and I wasn't the only black. I wasn't really, the only black guy. Or one of few, and because being there was like, well, we're all black, so what? It really was now about the essence of who you were. What can you do? How far can you push things? Where can you take things to? What's the value add you're really bringing? And, I was very fortunate at the time I was there. I tell a lot of people HBCUs are great because they're smaller schools. And so if you're a person that wants to go-getter, you can really go in there and make an impact. And a lot of people supported us and supported me and what we were doing. We started my first, I guess, real successful venture was a student organization we created that was centered around an urban farm, but a 2-acre urban farm in the middle of the city, but based around sustainability. And so we interfaced with all the stakeholders in the community itself, the university as an institution, the students there. We had a service learning aspect, and with a couple of the professors, they allowed their classes to do their projects with us. That was really dope. And then we had 6th, 7th, and 8th grade boys and girls school that we interfaced with. We had them coming out and going to the greenhouse, learning about plants and how they come, where they grow, and how they come, how they get here, and what you got to do to take care of them. And then we moved them to the farm. So it was a whole process we put them through. That was really successful. Actually, the principal of that school asked me to come back in the summer after the first year we ran it to run a summer school program with the boys that were in summer school. And so I ran that with them as well, 3 days a week. And so it was just a cool experience. But that was the first time I ever had real executive experience.
Yeah.
And
I got to hold you up there because
sorry.
No. And I'm being that guy that's going to stop you because I know Camden is about to burst at the seams, because you are talking about something that, well, go ahead, Camden. I'll just rather than me leading into it, you go ahead and tell them.
Well, my biggest question on that is, how is it going now? Because I have been involved with a bunch of programs like that where there is, and I was one of those kids, the kid who loves it and gets so excited. And then that energy, it just gets drawn out of them. We talk about it all the time with rugby coaches. They volunteer. And then eventually they get so burned out, they run away. And I've seen the same thing with volunteers in the schools. There's just up the road here, there's an elementary school that has a farm that's just destroyed because they had a teacher there. I talked with one of them. They had a teacher there for 6 years, and then the teacher moved to Phoenix, and it's just gone, and no one else stepped up for it. Yeah. So how is that going now? And I would love to hear any insights you have on that aspect of those things, those projects.
So the lesson the biggest lesson I learned there is really when you start, I'll relate it to business. So when you start an organization or business, in my opinion, you should always start with what is your exit strategy? Start with how you want it to end, and then think from there and build it up to there. So I kind of knew about exit strategy. I didn't really understand it. And mine got cut short because at the time, my wife got pregnant with our first son. And so that changed. We had to, we were living in the city. I was just down the street. We moved to the suburbs, and it just wasn't working with an infant in the house to really just a volunteer, and all my time went away. So,
spending volunteer hours with an infant around.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't go over too well.
Taking them outside, no shade. I'm in Houston. It's 100 degrees outside. It's not going to work. So, what we did. So for us, I actually passed the baton to a woman that was she was our master gardener. So she handled all the growing. I tried to grow stuff and learn real quick. I can't grow anything. I can organize and I can put it all together. I was like, that's
I'm right there with you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I was like, let me find somebody who's great at that. So I found, the universe, and like I said, TSU was so great. They would help me find things I needed. People were so just wonderful about just being supportive. And so found Claudette. She ran it for a while, a year. Then she moved on. And then it's at a university. I think that's the thing with teachers. If you don't have a culture there, and that was what we were really working on, was a culture. And it kind of got cut short. So I didn't really finish it out. Now the farm is actually still there. So it's still running. It doesn't the organization isn't there anymore, but the farm and the impact it's having on the community. I just drove by there last couple of weeks ago, and they were building out the second half of the 2 acres. And so that was really good. There's been people going there, but it's changed its scope a little bit, but still to see an asset that I created still be on the ground, still producing is awesome. Yeah, it's not, the program isn't running the way I wanted to, but that's just how things go. So, but it is up and running and still active, and that's one of those things. Now that my boys are getting a little bit older, and I've kind of got some more free time, starting to have a little more free time. I've been thinking about how do I make that impact again in that arena. So it's something that's definitely still on my radar. But yeah, I'm sorry. But to answer your question, well, I think it's really starting with your exit strategy. And then when you do that, then you can start garnering, the pieces that you need, because now I think when you start at the end, you really can create a real vision. It makes you create a vision. You have to be able to see that and push that through. And if I'm starting from the end, well, now I can sell this vision, and not so much, the individual pieces, but the big picture. And then I can get people to buy into that. And that was something I learned going through the process. So I went through 3 boards before I found my third. Well, the first 2, and then I realized, it's me that's the problem. And when I realized it was me that was the problem, I was like, then everything started working. But I just kind of got out of my own way. I was like, I don't know how to do that. Do you know? I was able to ask for help, and started really honoring people. I realized my ego was just totally inflated, synthetically. And I have a great idea. Ooh, I'm the bomb. And it was like, yeah, you don't have nothing unless you can get people to work with you. And so I think that's the 2 things I would say. One is start with an exit, start from the end in mind. And 2 is definitely sell that vision. And 3 is get your ego out of the way.
How, what kind of, I guess, did that spark the entrepreneurship bug for you? Because for me personally, ag is where I got that, because it was something about having your own land and taking care of things. You get to feed people. All that was so cool to me. And then it just sparked entrepreneurship as a whole, to just go out there and help people solve problems, all that kind of stuff. Is that where it came from for you? Or was that something that's always been around?
Yeah, I don't know if I guess it's, you asked my business partner, he's like, you were built for this. This is what you do. And and my wife even said, we've often talked about, I had gone, this different path, would I be here in this place? And she's like, I think you would. I think, sometimes it's things, things get drawn out of you and you get moved and pushed, and the universe pulls and pushes you and puts you in situations and for different reasons. I think what happened to me, to be honest, after I got separated from the Marine Corps, the guy that did our SEPS class, he came to me. That was my first introduction to business, and it was Amway. And he was like, let me introduce this Amway thing. And I was like, okay. So it was cool. It was the first time somebody had thought about, like, oh, you mean I don't have to? That time it was, I don't want a job. It wasn't really about being an entrepreneur. It was, well, I need to make money and I don't want a job. I don't want to be on somebody else's time. I didn't really understand all the mechanisms and all that. I come from a really good home. Both my parents are college educated, but my mom made a decision that my parents, made the decision my mom would stay home for multiple reasons for the really safety and sanity of my brother and I. And, so my dad, he worked every day, wonderful work ethic and discipline, was there for us. So I was always in my mind, kind of going to do the corporate thing. I've been geared for that and everything. But I think, having the experiences of being a musician and the way I was a musician showed me that there's a different way of life that you can survive. So it wasn't like I was really an entrepreneur as a musician, but it's not a normal 9 to 5. We would work, I go in sometimes at 3:00, sometimes I get there 3 a.m. It just all depends. We work 10, 12, 14 days in a row, it's like, and so, I think that those experiences, I think, kind of created the fertile ground for when I started reading books about business. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Okay, I can see that. And it was just kind of an aspect. I just knew I wanted more than just a job. I think some people, jobs are crap and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, they are, So, and at that time, I was ignorant to the thing, and they're not really, I think it's just some people just, they just search for something different. And that's just what it was for me. I don't know if it was anything specific that sparked it off. I know that experience changed things. It just showed me something, but it really wasn't until I was kind of 27 that I got introduced again to MLMs. But this time it was with a group, and they were heavy on education. Like, that's when I really got into reading books and reading lots of business books. Like, I've literally read the whole Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. People don't even know there's a whole series. I've read all of them. I told somebody I've read more books that I forgot that I read in over 15, 16 years, and so almost 20 now. God, I'm dating myself. But yeah, so I don't think so by the time I got to that, the farm, I tried to start so I'm at school of finance. So we had to do business plans every semester for class. All the business plans I did were all sustainability companies. So I did, I wrote one for a biodiesel fuel company. I wrote one for a compost company. I wrote one for the manufacturing of biodiesel. Then I wrote one for also the production of the raw material for the biofuel. That was an international one we did. And I wrote another one for something. And then I was in
put any of them into execution? Did you put
one of them we did, one of them we tried. And one of them we tried. I had the associate dean came to me at the compost company, and where he actually took one of his master's classes, and they expounded all the market research to make sure my assumptions were correct, which I knew they were, but they did it anyway, and which was super cool. And we tried. That was a time where I should have solicited some help, because I couldn't make the compost. Like, I'm really good at like putting it together, seeing all the angles, or this is the danger, Will Robbins. I'm not the best operator, right? Or the creator of the thing. I'm good at what I do. I'm visionary, and I can see things, and I can guide things and move them around, but I'm not necessarily the best technician sometimes. And I think it's a thing of, I think it's just a patience thing of maybe at the time and stage in my life, learning too many new things sometimes. It's like opportunity costs. And do I really want to spend the time to do that? And, but yeah, so that's how that, and at the time too, I was still running the farm. That was a big thing for me. So I was really moving that across, because all this was happening while I'm a full-time student. So I'm doing all this but that's so none of those, only that compost company one kind of got some legs on it. These were just semester projects that I really put together.
How'd you learn that lesson?
How'd you
learn that lesson? You mentioned that, and this, because I think this is a great point for our listeners, is how did you learn that you're not a good operator, executor, you're the visionary, you're the creator? How did you learn that? What happened? How'd you figure that one out?
Not getting the result I was looking for. I just kept running into the same roadblock, and I kept realizing, oh, it's me. I just accepted my limitations. But I think it's the precursor to that, like I said, was all these business books. So I was reading so much that I kind of created like almost an avatar, or like these, almost like a rugby field, football field. I created like just my boundaries. What was possible. I don't know. I don't really know exactly. It's just kind of in my brain. It kind of this idea was kind of formulated, and so an understanding was there. So when I ran into it, it's kind of like as a kid, you tell your kid, don't touch the hot stove, or don't do this, or don't. And as a kid, you're like, yeah, whatever. Don't hang out with those people. But when you're there and you're like, oh, this is what Dad was talking about, Mom was talking about, I gotta go. And and it's kind of, sometimes you don't know you're in that space until you're there. And so it was just going through it. I'm a big believer in life itself is the experience, good, bad, or indifferent. Be thankful for the lean and the fat times, because you're experiencing life, period. Be grateful for just life. And when you start there, everything else is gratitude driven. So I think it's the same thing. I just kind of understood, like, I just had to be in the space, and I would just do analysis of the result that I got. If it wasn't the result I was looking for, why didn't I get that? And I always start with myself. One of the main things that I learned and through this journey was, it's always about you. If you're not getting something, it's something that you're doing. And at least in our culture, in our society, I can't speak on other countries. I don't know what those, the environment they're in, but in this environment, you can, a lot of it comes down to how you see yourself, your self-worth, how you see the world around you. I can't remember who said it first, but when you begin to change the way you look at things, the things around you begin to change. And that's what happened. As I went through the process, I just started adjusting and tacking, analyzing, and just to be better.
Yeah. Dave Ramsey says, biggest problem in your business is you, and the biggest solution is you. So
100%. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to jump on that because, first, as we're going through this, you managed to, get out of the pitfall that I think a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, which is, you're reading all the books and everything, and then something's not going your way. So you keep reading the books and you just keep banging your head against that wall, trying to, why aren't the plants growing? Like, gosh, okay, I need more books, and just keep going on that kind of stuff. I know I've definitely been there. But then moving from that, if something isn't happening, it's you. I love that recognition, because it's, we talk a lot of stoicism on the podcast, and, what's inside your control, what's outside your control. It might not be totally true that if your business isn't working, it's entirely you. Who cares about the semantics of whether it's totally true? But if you take that mindset and you focus on the things that you can do and all the things inside your control, you're probably going to be successful. Like, there's still outside limiting factors, of course, like, there's a whole world out there. But if you focus on what's inside your control and keep improving those things and focus on yourself, that's a pretty good way to go forward with that.
Yeah. I think, and to add on to that, when you can recognize that, and when you identify, it makes you take inventory on what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then it makes you start analyzing those, understanding it that you have, because information without application is just personal fun time. And it just is. It's all it is. So and when you understand where your boundaries are, then you can understand who you need to attract, who you need to align with. And if you can't be honest with yourself about your limitations and where you're strong and where you're not, you'll always find the wrong partner. You won't find the complementing person. And so I think once you can better understand yourself, it allows you then to better build the right team around you.
How did you become a numbers guy? Because I'm fascinated by that. I mean, when you reflect back on all your music training and playing instruments, did that, because I've heard some theories about music, mathematical equations for music and things like that. Is that kind of or what? Because now you're a finance guy, right? I mean, I know you still have the other, your hobbies.
Yeah, for sure.
But your focus.
That's a really good question. So back to my upbringing, I'm third generation college. So I come from an educated people, a lot of, and at that time, Black people, it was very few degrees they could get. Education was like the number one. So I come from like a large group of educators, and the expectation is Black excellence.
Can I just for clarification? So when you say it, mean like your grandmother or grandfather, they were teachers. They got a college degree in education.
Yes.
They were.
Yes.
Yeah.
My grandfather has a college degree. He actually, and I just found out yesterday. I had a meeting with somebody who's a distant cousin, but he's a lot older than me. And he remembers my great grandfather. He was like, well, your great grandfather was an entrepreneur. I didn't know this until yesterday. I was like, oh, so now it's great you're asking, because now I'm like looking like, and then I didn't grow up with my grandparents. We would go see them, and they're from North Louisiana. So we would go see them. And, and everybody's like, well, your grandfather was this guy, he did all, I know he was on the school board, did a lot of cool things. Actually, he was the first Black elected school board official to their parish since Reconstruction.
Oh, wow.
That's
wow. That's
a long
cool.
time, so he's almost 90 now. And, but, he did that for about 40 years. And, as a kid, you're kind of like, well, his grandpa, he's on the school board. Cool. He didn't really,
Yeah.
But
you don't know what that means, right? Yeah. Yeah. You don't know what that older means.
I'm learning, about, all these people, and I'm starting to see maybe some of it is just in my system. But back to your original question, education was always, I tell people, if I hadn't joined the military, I would have gone to college and I probably would have been an engineer. Like, numbers weren't outside, I was in, AP math and, English, I did GT. It was kind of, it's always around. Like, I've always read. I'm a big reader. I've always been a big reader. I went through years where I just didn't have a television, didn't have cable for like a decade. I didn't get internet until later in life, longer, even though it was there. I just was so into information and books. So it's not a stretch for me. Science was always something that was, important to me. I really liked, I used to have I had the ant farm and the bug collection, and we would collect bugs and dissect and look at them. And, it was just, my dad studies for a hobby, quantum physics, so it's just, it's kind of, he just like, he was a systems programmer, so my mom is, she wrote plays when she was in college that, and stuff, it's just kind of, some of it is genetic, some of it is family, just the culture that we were brought up in. And so, I was kind of brought up always, you did the creative thing, but you also had to be grounded in the science as well, and the math and the numbers. So it really was pushed over the edge for me, recently in this new venture I'm in, and the new company I'm in, and my partnerships and my business partner, now, because I'm a quantitative analyst now, and I had to learn to become that. But through that process, it just even more solidified. It kind of more validated. But I've always liked math. I always liked doing the equations. It's just fun to me. It's a problem, and they're problems. And I like solving problems. I think just being a solutionist draws me to that kind of stuff. And math is nothing but a bunch of problems, So.
I'm laughing over here because I would always say I hated math, but then I realized in my work in entrepreneurship how much math I love doing. And it's like, oh, I just like solving the problems. I just didn't enjoy math class. Like there's two very different things there.
Yes. It was interesting. Last week I was talking with an educator, and I said, is it really that kids aren't smart, or they're not, or is it that the way they don't see a value in what you're teaching them? Mm-hmm. Especially with so much distraction now and so much other stuff and so much opportunity costs. If you're just giving me arbitrary information, I get these kids are inundated with arbitrary information. Who cares? Yeah. How do I use this? Why is this important? I think that's the difference in today's world, as in this information age, because it's not even so much about education anymore. It's really about, how do I synthesize information, and how quickly do I find that information, and how fast am I synthesizing it to understand how I can apply it into what I'm doing. And the person who can do that, or the organization who can do that the fastest, they're the ones that win.
I think just to add on there before you go, Dad, talking about providing that like vision for how somebody is able to use that, I think is such an important thing. Thinking back on what I could, rattle off to you that I learned in my college days, my high school days, there's two categories: things I wanted to do with my life, and things that were just so damn interesting that I still know about them. Talk to me about my Slavic history, werewolves and vampires mythology class I took. I can tell you all about werewolves and vampires. I can also tell you all about ag biz because I saw my future in it. Yeah. The classes that I don't remember are the ones that I didn't see the future. And I could even hammer that point home one more time. I remember the specific point in college where in one of my ag biz classes where I started writing a business plan. Everyone else pulled from some actual farm or a family farm or something like that. And I started writing my business plan for my company Opportunities. And that completely changed my perspective on my education, because everything I was learning was now for opportunities. It wasn't just to pass a test next week and then forget about, because I was definitely a crammer and a forgetter for most things. But it's having that vision of how you're going to use this, I think, is such an important thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the kind of experience that happened to me with the garden, with the farm, and it was called the Icarus International Green Program, so we called it Icarus for short. People don't know Icarus was the son of an inventor, and so that was kind of how the creative aspect and all that's where we drew from that, and plus we were we're using the energy of the sun to grow these plants and things like that. So it was kind of a multi-tiered kind of triple entendre there. And, but you're absolutely right. That once I had that experience of application, everything just was then it was like, oh, I don't need this. I don't need that. Okay, I'll just go here and just do the basics and be gone about my business. But it really changed when it was like, oh, there's a purpose for this. And I think so much stuff, tribe and purpose, it's so much stuff that once you have a purpose on why you're doing something, I think it's intrinsic to who we are as humans. I think that's how we've gotten to where from an anthropological standpoint, how we've gotten to where we are as a species. And, it's all about the purpose, what we're moving forward. And once you can understand the purpose of something as a human, your imagination really gets to do the thing.
On the anthropological aspect there, I heard this the other day and I just thought it was so freaking interesting. Somebody, I don't remember the full context, but they were talking about just the survival mechanism of learning how to function in a family, and how it's literally just I guess not the lizard brain, you'd say the monkey brain probably. The monkey brain is just there, and it's just like, I need to fit in with this group of people. What can I do to help them so that they can help me? And we don't realize it, but that's the monkey, hell, that added to the list. We got the lizard brain back here, you got the monkey brain up here.
Yeah. It's interesting, and to expound on that, people talk about teenagers. Well, when you look at brain development over time, or parents complaining about teenagers, in your teenage years, you're supposed to disconnect yourself from your family. Because when you look at it from, like I said, up until this industrialized world, by the time you were 14, 15, you was a grown person. You were either working or working, like what else is there? And so it's kind of like, I think, so at that time in our lives, you got to figure out where you belong. And I think because we live in this for us in our first world, we are so detached in a lot of ways from that the interpersonal aspect of being a human. and back to tribe again. It's all about the tribe. There's a reason why most people have 150 friends, because that's historically, from an anthropological standpoint, the size of most communities is 150 people. And even on LinkedIn, when you look at it, when they did the averages of LinkedIn numbers of how many people, not just your follow, but really the people that you're engaged in, the average person had no more than 150 people.
That's such an interesting thing. It takes me back to this is a dog psychology thing, but we're all animals. But it was about how a dog interaction, how dogs can interact really well with one other dog, and if you introduce a third, that it just complicates things because it just changes the perspective.
At Christmas this year. You mean, yeah.
Yes, with the 6 dogs at your house. Yeah. Oh, sorry, 5. Yeah.
5 dogs.
Yeah. You've got to
but it's, there's a lot of science to those, those groups that work well. It's, we talk about it with our power tribe, with Tribe and Purpose, of those groups, 5 to 8 is a great group of people. You get 15 people in a room, you ain't getting much done. You're not getting much done.
My wife always talks about, she said, if there's 3 women in a group, it works great, or 3 people. She's like, oh, you go on a trip with 3 people, it's awesome. You go on a trip with more than 3 people, it's just chaos starts to happen, because it's something about, certain numbers of people. And it's like an aggregate group think, from the mastermind aspect of how the minds are syncing up, and that all that nonverbal communication and intuition is happening. And it's just, I think when you have 3 people, everybody gets their space. You have more than that. It becomes, now we've got to figure out ways of bringing in all these even more personalities to mix, especially when there's not a specific rule set of how we're supposed to behave. I think and I told you that's where rules come from. It's not that it's an end all be all. It's just that, hey, we had to figure out a way of us dealing with each other so we didn't end up just fighting all the time. And so, yeah.
Yeah, show me the culture that evolved without rules and religion. It was necessary.
Well, I just got to put a caveat on that rule of 3, except for Marines. I have always said, give me just 1 Marine. I don't need the other 2 that come with them.
Oh, you need 3 more.
No.
You need a fire team.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if I'm going into an op, but if we're doing some other things, no.
Oh, yeah.
Because then they get that collective Marine think going on. And it's like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah, we'll take over everything. It's going to be a real problem coming. You get about 4 or 5 Marines together. It's like, we don't need none of y'all. We're good.
Believe me, I've lived it, so I know that very well. What I want to dive into though, Brandyn, is your path is awesome, and I just wonder if you could help others understand, because you are living your purpose now. You've got clarity in that. And so many people think, nah, or yeah, I don't know, or what. What's the path? How did you get there? I guess, we understand the bio, but I'm talking about the internal of purpose discovery.
So coming out of high school, I'd been vice president of our band. I had been an equipment manager. I had been section leader. We had a lot of success in our band program. We were 3rd in the state of Texas in 5A schools at the time. That was the largest you could be. And, 5th in the state my senior year. And, we were just, I was just used to this success, but it came with a lot of discipline. Like, man, if you were on time, you were late. Like, you were late, you were marching a mile. It was if it was said, it was meant, So, from that, and then leaving high school, I'm on this high. I joined the Marine Corps. Everything's good. I get to the fleet, and I do not have the experience that I even remotely thought I was going to have. It was just bang, 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 bang the whole time. I'm 18, 19. I don't understand. I don't know my belly button from my butthole. I'm like trying to figure it out, and it's just bang, bang. I'm banging with these people. They're banging with me. It's just, and so I end up getting separated. I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, they said it was a pattern of misconduct, and I literally was late to muster, and that's what they got me for. And officially, I don't know all the other inner workings. I wasn't happy to be there. I really didn't want to be there. After I left the band, I was so much happier. And I think, and a part of that was, it was the first part on my end. It was the first time I'd taken a passion and it became a job. And then that's when I realized I can't do this for a living. And so, but my identity had been so wrapped up in that, and one in being a musician, and definitely in being a Marine. You are a Marine. It's not something you do. You become that. And and when I was separated the way I was and didn't leave on it's the first time I didn't leave on my terms, and it was very rough for me. I was married at the time. Because I lost my income, I went through a divorce, and I lost my car. Car was repossessed. My motorcycle was repossessed. I ended up having to get a roommate. All the things in my mind I was like not doing. I'm gearing myself to build this life, this family, all this stuff. And so that happens. And, like I said, those 8 years that I went through of just, a lot of, that self-destructive aspect, I really, I had to search and find myself. I really had to dig deep, because I had to really find my self-worth. And even though people saw me and could see me, I couldn't see myself. And it was a lot of, it's just a long process. And for me, and it was a lot of soul searching, a lot of reading, a lot of accepting things, a lot of getting rid of old things, and not being afraid to let go of things that, even if everyone else believed it, didn't really serve me. I could understand and see why it would serve you, and it can serve you. It just doesn't serve me. And when I was able to accept for myself what that meant, that's when I was able to start growing as a person, as Brandon, as me, and finding my own identity. I was able to forgive all the people in my past. I was able to forgive myself for all those places in the past. I was able to accept my parents for who they are. I saw them as people instead of seeing them as superheroes. And I still, they're still high on my, in esteem and respect, but I started seeing them as people. I started seeing myself, and everyone around me, and really, because the more work I did intrinsically, the more I started seeing it out there. And when I started seeing it in people, I started dealing with, and it was just little bitty things. It was aggregate. This, small steps of just growing. Sometimes it was big leaps, but really majority of it was just small little things that were happening. I was just really blessed to run across people who would give to me. So I was in the restaurant business for almost a decade. I waited tables, managed mainly as a waiter. And I got to meet a lot of people. And seeing so many different people from so many different walks of life, it just gave me more, I guess, a larger sample size. And I could really got to talk to those people. Or, how are you successful? What are you doing? What are you not doing? Or I don't do this, or I do that. And I just kind of, because I didn't have a TV, I didn't have those distractions. I just went home and I would just meditate on those things and just think about them. I walk my dog, and on my walks with my dog, I think about those things. Like, what is it that I want to do? Where do I want to go? I've tried all these other things. They didn't work. It didn't mean that I don't have value. I just hadn't found what it was for me. And it was a process. And I tell people, man, it was simple. It wasn't easy. Because it was a lot of acceptance. And sometimes that's going to upset yourself. It's going to upset your ego. It's going to upset your cognitive dissonance. It's going to be firing off like rockets. But you've got to work through it. And I started studying humans. And when I started studying humans in the brain, and understanding who we are and what we are, it really, I understood the spiritual aspect. I was raised in the church. At one time, I thought I was going to be a pastor. Like I was killing Bible bowls. I got trophies from I was going to circuit, destroying it, and even today you ask me, yeah. So from that, so I understood that we were spiritual beings. I didn't understand the physical part of us, because I'm looking around. And so I was also the only Black child in any of my classes from 3rd grade and 9th grade. So I grew up, we were the only Black family in our church. I grew up in a small country town that's now a full suburb, in the 80s and the 90s. So you can only imagine what it was like back then. And better than what my parents dealt with, for sure. But it still was like, my poor brother, he's much more darker skinned than me. He dealt with a lot more, and he's dyslexic. So it was a lot of issues he had. And I think from that, I've always kind of seen myself as an outsider. So I always look at I just look at things differently, and I'm synthesizing information differently because I've lived in kind of these multiple worlds and these cultures. And so, and I'm like, why is this important to this group? Why is this important to that group? Why is that important to me? And why does it feel different when I'm here, even the same subject matter, than over here? I just question, and I think that's really the number one key. I'm always questioning. How do I do this? Why do we do this? What does this mean? And I guess I'm going through the scientific method just all the time in my head. And, I call it attacking and adjusting. And I call it now just being better. Actually, now what I say is the more I focus on my being, the easier my doing is. Mm. And I think I didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's what I've been doing this whole time, just learning more about my being.
Yeah, and what came to my mind was, and I don't remember who said this, but everything we need is within us. Mm-hmm. And when you accept that truth, then that you mentioned, intrinsically focusing and who you are, and earlier you mentioned, realized kind of looked around, things weren't going right, and you went, oh shit. I think I know where the problem is.
Yeah. It's and a lot of that it comes from I've got good parents. I can't as now that I'm a parent, I'm older. I'm just recognizing really how difficult it is to parent. It's oh man, it's a juggling act. And then 2, understanding that and looking at my parents and be like, man, they really did a good job. And they really, and I think so much of that is just predicated on my future is predicated on just the foundation I had. I can't even, some of it's me, it's still I've got to do the work, but it really comes down to, I know that it wasn't perfect, but it was really good raw materials. And I for me, but the aspect of what you just said about looking at yourself, accepting everything you need is inside you. That was a hard one for me to look at because I had been so used to blaming everything else. And they did this to me, that happened to me, or those people, or them, and that, and this. And instead of going, okay, what role did I play in this? That right of that, they did that. That's true. That's a truth. But it's also a truth that I was part of this equation as well. And what part of this equation, what variable did I play in? And when I started doing that, it just changed how I see things. And so the world around me began to change.
Mm-hmm. In Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, he talks about something similar to what you were saying, Dad. He talks about if you want to retreat from the world, you can always retreat inward. I think he calls it like the impenetrable fortress inside your mind, that type of a thing. Then, we're talking about identity, finding purpose, all that kind of stuff. It seems like every single person we talk to on this show and different entrepreneurs I listen to on their podcasts, there is a significant event in their 20s that causes them to be forced to find that identity. And then they move forward with this newfound clarity. My question, I want to open up to both of y'all. Brandon, you can go first on this. Does it take a bad breakup to learn identity, whether it's a literal breakup, a breakup with a business partner? I know I had that and it changed the way I view business. What do you have to have that? Or is there a more positive way to build it than just getting torn down and having to retreat to that impenetrable fortress?
So some things in life are taught and some things are learned. Mm-hmm. And how do we learn? We learn through failure. It's the only way you learn. And so in my mind, you have, how do you get a samurai sword? You got to put it through the fire over and over and over. 1,000 times you put this thing in the fire, and you put it in the fire so much that it no longer is straight. It naturally starts to bend. That's why samurai swords are I'm sorry, hold on, are bent, because that naturally happens to them. They just build this, and I think the more you put that through the fire, the more because that's how you get rid of your impurities. I think through that process, it's more you find out what you don't like. It's that subtraction it's addition through subtraction. It's the more you find what you don't want to be, what you don't want to have. That's when you can start figuring out what do I have? And I think that's a process you have to go through. You have to learn that about yourself, and you have to have challenges. You have to have things that you come up with, get that resistance. The same with your muscles. You don't build muscles just by wanting muscles. You gotta push some weight. You gotta have resistance. You gotta do those push-ups. That's the only way anything in this universe grows. It's the same thing with trees. If you take a tree that's been, or a plant that's grown inside in a pot, you put that same tree outside, it's not going to survive because it hasn't grown with those resistance. It's not strong enough. I think the more, and a lot of people want to shield their loved ones and kids from, resistance, but I'm like, the resistance is the secret sauce, and it's more so now it comes, because I don't try to shield myself, 75, I don't try to shield them from things happening. What I do is I point to them, this is the reason why it's important that you think, let's walk this through. Like, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? What were you doing in that place that made you respond this way or attract this to you? And so, because life is it just is. It's the environment. It's not. It's unhospitable. We live in the first world, and there's a lot of technical things that are great and still, but the world is still an unhospitable place. It's a challenging place because it's designed for the strongest to survive. Nature is designed that way, and I think, we can. I think when you accept that, then you can. It's okay to face challenges. Then you look forward to the challenges. It's just like when I became a Marine. The first month you're there, it's literally living hell. It's physically just demanding. It's just, and I'll never forget the first time the drill instructor was like, "You hate it now, one day you'll love it. Before you leave here, you will love this." And I was like, this dude is nuts. Like, of all the craziest things he said, this is like gotta be the craziest. Dude, by it's 12 weeks for us. By week 6, I was like, I didn't get PT today. Like, where's by week 8, 9, I was like, yeah, let's PT. I love it. He was right. The pain that you go through, woo. And it's kind of like, and then if you want to take it on a scientific aspect, the higher that wave is, the more amplitude you get from it. The shorter that wave is, the farther the distance you go, the less powerful that wave is. So the further you go in that wave, in that path, and you've got that distance to travel, that amplitude is stronger. So the farther that you might have to have the fall, or the farther you fall, the farther that is even more higher you can go.
And I'll put it out, which awesome, but I'm gonna just use one word because you've mentioned this throughout, and that word is movement. And if you don't walk towards it, if you don't take the step, you're stationary. If you're indecisive and you stand still, you'll never know. I like to use the analogy, you appreciate this, growing up canoeing down the Brazos River, and you know what? You can get your canoe out there in the river and float down the river, and maybe hit a rock, maybe you get stuck on a sandbar, maybe you end up on the bank, but you know what? You can make progress. But if you want to go where you want to go, you got to put resistance into the river. You have to put your paddle in, and you have to pull and go faster than the river. You have to put resistance in the river to be able to control your canoe. And that river is life. And if you don't start to move forward in your life, you don't control your life. You're just going through the motions, and whatever happens around you, the conditions, the things that happen, the pollen in the air that makes you sneeze, it will throw you off, and you will just be along for the ride. So you got to make that choice. Do you want to go for the ride, or do you want to be in charge and go forward? And the only way to go forward is to be in movement. And one more metaphor with that the step 3, I think it is step 3. I may have it wrong. Maybe step 2 of the Army's troop leading procedures. I won't ask the guy who was in the band. The Army troop leading procedures is movement. What? Oh, that's right. You were a Marine.
So yeah, we're all combat infantrymen.
I know, but I gotta give you a hard time.
I know. but you're 100% right though. Yeah, 100%. You've got, and the other thing about that too, I think that people miss is a buddy of mine. He's like a big older brother to me. Through suffering is how we come together. When everything is good, everything's great. What do I need? What do we need each other? It's kind of, I'm good. But when I have a problem, when we're going through it, when I need to move this thing or build this thing or whatever challenge, through that suffering is how we come closer. And people look at that as a bad thing. And I'm just like, it might not be fun, but it's necessary,
Misery loves company, man. You know that. Yeah. Brandon, this has been awesome. Man, you know what? Because I got too many, Camden, you go first. What'd you learn?
You said you got too many. I have 6 things written down in my what I learned box. I always put at the bottom of my notes, and 4 of those have stars on them. So I try to pick one of those 4. And then I realized that I think I could throw a bunch of them together. So I'm gonna do my best on this. So, talking about the need to start movement and take charge in order to, move forward in life, right? And then we're talking about, purpose and identity. What I think you can do is you can willingly retreat into your mind, talking about that impenetrable fortress. You can willingly do that and create that own resistance, going back to the weightlifting metaphor. You can create that resistance for yourself so that when those toughest times come, you're either ready for it or, it's not tough at all, or, you can move out of it quicker like that. You can find your identity, follow your purpose in that kind of a way. And, just like we were saying, it's simple, but it's not easy. And, it's so simple to throw out, just say, hey, retreat inward, be at peace. You throw out some yogi crap like that. Like there's so much stuff you could say that is just such simple little phrases, but they're not easy to do. And you have to fight through that resistance in order to be ready for when those worst things come. So that's my lesson, is to be proactive, willingly retreat into that fortress and be ready for when those tough times come, so that hopefully you don't have to go through a bad breakup or, business partner loss or loss of your business or whatever you have to go through. Hopefully you can figure out who you are before that.
Yeah. Well, and I just add to that, as much as I say, begin movement, you got to be moving. There's also that time to pause, right? To pause and reflect. And
movement doesn't have to be literal movement, right? Yeah. I mean,
don't willy-nilly it. That's don't go around, woo, I'm going to just run, because, if I go out running in my yard, I choose a direction I'm going to run. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to run into a tree, right? You don't want to do that. So, man, for me, I'm going to go with, wow, nope, yep. No, man, it's so hard. All
right, Brandon gets an award. We learned the most. We'll ship you a medal.
Well, it's that realization that it's within you. I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest reminder, the foot stomper, if you will, that we all have it. I don't care who you are, what your upbringing was, what culture you're in, we all have it within us. That is the difference between us and animals. And I don't remember if it was Seneca or Marcus Aurelius that talks about, we have a sleep in common with animals, but we have a purpose to get up in the morning. Mm-hmm. And that purpose should drive us, but it's within us that is created. So, man, Brandon, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
I learned that to continue to trust myself, continue to believe in myself. And I think, like I said, I dealt with a lot of self-worth for a while, and from many different angles. And when I get to meet great people like you and Cam, and have this conversation and to share my story and just kind of just how I see the world. It's not like I'm right or wrong, but just my perspective. And then, but to see the reception of that, it reminds me, the work has been worth it, and to keep doing the work and to keep passing along. And back to the example you gave, Otis, about just now about the plan and direction and having that, which is, exactly why, I do what I do now as a business and our firm. We want to make sure that we're helping business owners, entrepreneurs, investors have the right plan that they're going to, and they're not just running through, because you kind of start off that way. You can start off that way, just running through. But if okay, I'm going to go 3 steps straight, 2 steps to the right, 4 steps straight, back 3 steps. If I know I'm getting to this place that's specific, now I can easily and less with all that stress, all that anxiety, go through the thing. And it's so important really to be able to create that understanding, that plan, and move in to create, to get to where you want to get to without the least amount of adverse effect happening to you. Doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect and then you're not going to, it won't start raining or it won't be 100 degrees outside or a bird won't poop on you. It just means that even when those things happen, you're not stressed about which way do I go. I can take that time to pause to get the bird poop off of me. I can take the time. I can even leave and go inside and wait till it cools off or warms up or whatever, and then come back to the place where I was. And I know I've still got this path that I can plan. I can move through. And I think having that surety and understanding for us is to create for people is awesome, and it's wonderful. And so I've just seen it so many times. People go, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that." Well, yeah, you're right. But once now we can start to create that more of that nuance and sophistication inside of, where you're going and what you're trying to do.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, how can folks get in touch with you, follow you? What's the best way?
So right now, the best way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. And it's Brandyn Cottingham. Our company name is Lumiere, Lumiere. And so we're an investment design firm. You can find us on LinkedIn. We don't do a lot of social stuff. We're back to growing pains. We went through a phase of time in our business where we were open just to the public, and literally we were inundated. We told more people, it was more time telling people no than it was actually doing work. And so when we rebranded, we shut all that stuff down, and it's really been working well for us, just word of mouth, doing good business and being about it. And, but the only real place you can find me on an open portal is on LinkedIn, and all my other socials is private. I'm a private guy. I don't, family and friends get all the other stuff. So once you become family or friend, then you can get access.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Brandyn, really appreciate your time today, man. Some great stuff. I know that there's a lot of folks out there that when they listen to this, they're going to really, it's going to help them clarify their path. So really appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm glad I could. Thank you both for sharing your time with me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. And yeah, I'm just very grateful. Thank you.
Awesome. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Cam Otis Show. And a special thanks to our guest, Brandyn Cottingham, for joining us today. And of course, our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. Get started for free today at findyourpurpose.coach. Make sure to follow the Cam Otis Show on Instagram and Facebook, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can always get a full archive of our episodes at thecamotishow.buzzsprout.com. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.